It is finally time to start in the garden. We've gotten trees down, we've gotten limbs cut, and we are building our raised beds. So I'm really excited to show you the very first steps in our brand new garden build. Okay, so the garden is finally ready to start putting beds in. It has been a really long project. We had to get some trees taken down. We took down the majority of them, but we did have to have a company come in and, hey, my kitty is saying hey, finish off. We had about 5 more that they needed to take down. They were huge and really close to the house. Sorry, JJ wants to say hi. So we had those taken down. We had a great local company do it. We also had another local company come in and grind the stumps for us. They did an excellent job. So now we get to put together our beds. And this year we're doing something, or this time around in this garden, we're doing something very different. We are doing metal beds. In our old garden, most of the beds that I had were wood beds. They were pressure treated wood. I did have one cinder block bed, and then when we expanded the garden, we ended up just doing an in-ground garden. And the soil here is just terrible. It's red clay. It is 100% red clay. Even in the area where we took the trees down, between the roots and the clay, there's just not a good way to get an in-ground garden going without having to rent like a major tiller and possibly damaging the roots of the surrounding trees that we decided to leave up. So instead, we are going to basically do all raised beds in this garden. And I did opt for some pricier ones that had a great warranty on them. They are huge. The ones we're building right now are 4 by 8, but they are almost 3 feet tall. And the reason I decided to go with those is because in the long run, I don't want to have to replace these. And so that's going to make it a lot easier for me to bend over to get things. I'm not going to be on my knees in the garden, which, you know, eventually I'm not going to want to do. And these beds are supposed to last long enough that by the time I can't get on my knees in the garden and weed things and, you know, plant things like that, these beds should still be good. So thinking from a long-term perspective, it made sense just to spend the money up front to get these taller beds. Now, with that being said, because they are a lot pricier, we are not going to have a completed garden this year. I am budgeting, and the best deal is to buy 3 beds and you get 1 free by their math. And so every couple months, my plan is for us to save up enough money and be able to buy another round of 4 beds. And we're just gonna have to grow the garden over the next few seasons. That really hurts if we could stop that. But in the long run, it is going to be exactly what I want. So it will be worth it, and all of my patience will hopefully pay off. Okay, so we have our beds together. Yesterday we put together our first bed. That one took us about 4 hours. There's definitely a slight learning curve. This one was much better, and I would highly recommend having someone with tiny fingers that knows how to operate a drill, because it makes things go very fast. This one we got together in, I think, less than an hour, honestly, which isn't bad since it was just me and him doing it.
45 minutes. maybe tops.
Maybe 45 minutes. As you can tell, it is like 400% humidity today. We are dripping. This is ridiculous. But what we are going to do is we used our Polish ingenuity to get that other bed out here. My grandmother and my great-grandmother would be very proud of us. And now we are going to run some landscaping fabric down. Because there wasn't a whole bunch growing back here, I'm not totally worried about weeds coming up, especially given the depth of these beds. But just in the interest of doing it right the first time, we did go purchase some landscaping fabric. So we are going to run that down first, and then we are going to get our beds on it, and I will show you how we are going to save hundreds of dollars in the way that we are going to fill them. Okay, so we have the landscaping fabric down. We have the beds where I want them. They're mostly level. I'm not looking for total perfection here. They're gonna shift and stuff. The ground right now is really wet. We've had a whole bunch of pop-up thunderstorms. So our next thing is filling these beds. Now, these beds are almost 3 feet tall. And if I were to try to fill them with 100% dirt, not only would I be out a whole bunch of money, but quite frankly, I'd just be out a whole bunch of money. I can't afford to fill them with dirt. On top of that, over time, dirt, as you know, compacts. It makes for poor drainage. And so what we are doing is using the Hügelkultur method, I believe is how it's pronounced. It's a German technique. If you've been gardening in raised beds, I'm sure you've heard of it. If you're not, though, then it is a method of layering that allows for drainage, slow decomposition, aeration, and really is just a huge money saver. So what you basically do is you layer large pieces of logs, chunks of logs. There's a variety of ways you can lay them flat, you can cut them short, stand them up. I've seen it done both ways. Ideally, you would want logs that are old and already starting to decompose, because they are going to hold your moisture as best as possible while also allowing for drainage. I really don't have those, quite frankly, but what I do have is a lot of new logs that have been taken down from the trees we've taken down, and so for us, those are going to work. So we would layer our logs on. Then the next thing you're going to layer are large sticks, ranging in thickness from your arm to smaller and skinnier. We are going to use a lot of the tree tops that came out of the trees we took down. Some of those branches, they still have leaves on them. That's not a problem. That will compost down as well. After that, most people typically add some kind of fill dirt, whether it is fill dirt itself or wood chips or topsoil or just yard dirt or something you dig out of the woods. Instead of doing that as our next step, because we are working on cleaning up a lot of the leaf debris and things like that in the yard, we are actually going to use leaf debris as our next layer. This is going to achieve a few different things for us. One, leaves compost amazingly. And because this place, even though someone lived in it prior to us moving in, it was essentially abandoned. It was not cared for. And so there is so much leaf debris that has already started to compost in and around the house. We are going to maximize that and use that as our next layer. These beds are going to be our fall garden. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form in a hurry to try to get them filled up and planted. It is the last part of July. I have some time before I even need to consider doing any fall planting, because we are rolling somewhere between 95 to 100 degrees with 400% humidity. Things don't want to be planted right now. So I have some time to allow these beds to one, fill them up naturally, two, add our scraps and stuff. Instead of putting it in a compost pile, these beds are now going to become our active compost piles. I will just dump all of our kitchen scraps, anything that we don't send to the chickens, will go into these beds because it will have time to break down. Same thing goes for when I clean out the chicken run and the chicken coops. I will be taking that, and instead of putting it in a compost pile, I will be sticking it in these beds because it will have some time to break down. Once we get closer to planting season, then I will probably have to get a load of topsoil brought in. We are already planning on bringing in some dirt and topsoil to fix all of this back here. That will be another video, but the ground back here, it needs to be leveled, it needs to be filled in, there's holes, there's chunks, it needs to be fixed. So when we order that, I will probably take from that and I will use it to add the next layer to my beds. And then that way at the end, I will have to purchase either like good organic garden soil. I have a local company that was recommended to me on Facebook that we're gonna price out, or I will go to our local nursery, which I love. They are a wonderful small business. And their bagged soil is just absolutely amazing. It is just phenomenal. I've had so much luck since stopping using Miracle Grow and Scott's and all of that like crap that you find in the big box stores. This stuff is great. And so if I end up having to purchase bagged soil, I will definitely share what that is for you guys. It starts with an F, F-A-R, Farfal, I'm not sure. I'll share it if we end up going that route. But we are using this method. One, I mean, just common sense wise, like you're not gonna fill an 8x4x3 foot boat full of bagged dirt. Like, you couldn't afford it. And if you could, you probably aren't doing your own gardening. You're probably hiring someone to do it for you. But on top of that, it still just isn't the best method for a raised bed to promote drainage and healthy plants and stuff like that. So it's a money saver, but it is also an excellent way to improve the health of your beds and your plants. So what we're gonna do is we have some logs and we're gonna start stacking and getting those in. Okay, so as you can see, we have added some basically fill dirt. This is kind of what was left over after they ground the stumps. It's some mud, some forest dirt, some roots, some shavings, grindings, whatever they're called. I got him to put about like a bucket and a half in one, and then I think 2 full buckets in the other. That is slightly off kilter, and it is gonna drive me nuts for a little while, and then eventually I'll just get over it because there's really nothing I can do about it right now. So now what I'm gonna do is work on raking these leaves up from around these beds and getting them in. They have already started to decompose because, like I said, nothing was done to this land pretty much since the house was built about 22 years ago. So they are already a good, almost compost type base. And we have noticed the more we have gotten rid of the leaf litter closer to the house, we have had less bugs, less mosquitoes. It's just been a very good adventure. So that is going to be my next step. Okay, so now that I have some leaf litter and it's almost basically full, the next thing I'm gonna do is take the compost bins that we already have. Those are gonna get emptied into the top of these two. And from here on out, I will just be dumping compost straight into the tops of these beds. I will not be putting it into a compost bin. It will just go straight into these beds so that it can start composting in the beds. After I get the compost in, I'm going to clean both of our chicken coops and, well, our chicken coop and then our chicken tractor. and get that in there, because chicken manure does need some time to age before you plant things with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that cleaned out so that we can get the process going. And just a quick note about our 2 chicken enclosures. This one obviously is attached to the coop, so the chickens come out here during the daytime. At night, they're in the coop. But I have started raking up all the leaves from around this area. You can see here, this area is completely cleaned out. I have all of this to do because, one, of course, I'm trying to reduce snakes and bugs and stuff back here, but also the chickens pick through the bugs. They also decompose the leaves faster. When I first had this built and we had it finished and we were ready to put chickens in here, I dumped probably 6 to 8 wheelbarrow loads full of leaf litter in here. And it was full probably about 6 inches up off the ground. And this is just what they have done in maybe a month and a half. And honestly, not even all of these chickens have been out here. It really has just been these 3. These guys weren't big enough to let out until today is the first day actually that we have let them out. They're thrilled, they're scratching. So when I rake all this up today, even though they have flattened it, I am gonna replace all of this with more leaf litter and just continue the process, because it's still composting. They just essentially do it faster than if I were to put it in a compost pile. Of course, the downside is then they kick it all in their water and I've got to clean their water out, but they really love it. It gives them more bugs and more opportunities to forage. And it, again, cleans up the woods, helps reduce mosquitoes and stuff around on our side. So that is the best. We do the same thing in here. When we had to move these bullies into the tractor, I again filled this bottom up. It catches the poop. It acts like bedding, but it's free essentially, instead of having to go buy like pine shavings or something. They pick through it, they poop on it, they eat it down, and what's left is like fast action compost. So I will get this cleaned out as well today, because once it gets to this stage again, they kick it in their food, they kick it in their water. It just needs to get cleaned out, and also to give them fresh ground. And then I will replace that with more leaves, and we will just continue the cycle. Doing it this way allows me to compost, honestly, probably 10 times more, twice as fast. So it's really an effective method to kind of speed the process along. So you can see this is about a week later. We've had some really great rain, and everything in those boxes is settling down, which is what I want it to do. I want it to kind of settle, fill in any of the nooks and crannies underneath so that I can get an accurate depth for adding my dirt on top to plant in this fall. This is 3 weeks later. We were actually able to use only 6 cubic feet of dirt in each of those 2 beds. That's 2 to 3 of the big bags of soil that I can get from my local garden store. So far I have collards, kale, and some green beans planted in the first 2. And then Kevin helped me finish the last 2 this weekend. And we are going to hopefully get them filled up this week and get the rest of our fall garden planted. Thanks for coming along today. I hope you learned a little something, and we'll talk to you on the next video.